All right. Hi, everybody. So similar to last time, I'm just going to use this short video to go through a couple of our wrap-up exercise problems that Professor Kim wanted me to go over with you guys. I'll try and explain as I go kind of why we're putting the answers that we're putting, but as always, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. So let's get started. The first one we'll be looking at is B on page, let's see what page it is. It's on page 43. Chapter 10, wrap-up exercises, B. And so it looks like we're going to fill in the blanks with the most appropriate words from the box below, and we're only supposed to use each word once, and if necessary, we can change the form. So first, let's just go through and make sure that we know all the words. We know 늦다 is to be late. We know 들어오다 is to enter. We know 막히다, here, let's do this. 막히다 right here is like to be crowded or jammed up. 편하다 is to be peaceful, or sorry, not peaceful, to be like, what's the word for 편하다, to be like comfortable. 시작하다 is to start. 아프다 is to be sick, and 이사하다 is to move. So now that we know all of our definitions, let's move into filling in the blanks. So number one, 오늘 수업에 blank 죄송합니다. So they're obviously apologizing, so it's not a great thing. And so in this instance, I feel like using 늦다 would be the proper word. And then because they're saying probably I'm sorry because I was late, we would use the conjugation 늦어서. 오늘 수업에 늦어서 죄송합니다. I'm sorry that I was late to class today. Awesome. So we did 늦다, cross that out. Excuse me. Move on to number two. 택시가 빠르고, and then just a blank. All right, so 택시가 빠르고, they're describing the taxi. So they're saying the taxi is fast and something else. So the taxi can't really be sick, and the taxi can't move. Taxi start doesn't really work in this case either. And 막히다 doesn't really make sense either. Taxi is crowded, you may think works, but in this case, 막히다 doesn't really mean crowded in the sense that like it wouldn't work for applying it to a taxi. It more applies to like traffic and that sort of thing. And then 들어오다 doesn't really make sense either. So I think in this case, 편하다 is our best bet. So 택시가 빠르고 편해요. The taxi is fast and comfortable. Nice. Moving on. Number three, 지금 방으로 blank 사람이 제 동생이에요. So 지금 방으로 시작하는, no, that doesn't really work sense. Being sick doesn't really make sense, and neither does 이사. Actually might make sense in this situation, but in this case I do think that 들어오다 is our best bet. So 지금 방으로 들어오는, we use the noun modifying form. So 지금 방으로 들어오는 사람이 제 동생이에요. Right now, the person coming into the room is my younger sibling. So I think that makes sense. Number four, moving on, we're 아침에는 차가 많아서 길이 많이. So in the morning, there are so many cars. I think in this one, the word we're going to use is fairly obvious. It's this 막히다, right? So 아침에 차가 너무 많아서 길이 많이. And oh shoot, why can't I write? In this case, you don't need to use any connecting form or anything. We just conjugate it like a normal sentence ending, right? 아침에 차가 많아서 길이 많이 막혀요. In the morning, because there are a lot of cars, the road is really congested. Okay, number five. 복잡한 문제가 많아서 머리가. So because there are a lot of complicated problems, my head is, in this case, start and moving don't really make any sense, and we've used everything else, and so I think in this case we're going to go with 아프다. So 복잡한 문제가 많아서 머리가 아파요. Nice. All right, number six. 기숙사가 너무 불편해서 아파트로. So because my dormitory is pretty uncomfortable, I something toward an apartment. So in this case also, we've eliminated a lot of the other options. In this case, start doesn't really make sense, and so I think 이사하다, to move, makes the most sense in this situation. And once again, because it's the end of a sentence, I don't really think we need to use a connecting form or anything. we can just conjugate it like a normal sentence ending. So 기숙사가 너무 불편해서 아파트로 이사했어요. I moved to an apartment. Excuse me. Number 7. 민지는 작년에 테니스를 blank 대 지금은 무척 잘해요. All right. Well, we only have one left. It's she. Oh, let me turn it into an eraser. All right. 민지는 작년에 테니스를 시작했는데. And because the day right here, we can see that they're using the nunde connective form. And so we just conjugate the word like that. So 민지는 작년에 테니스를 시작했는데 지금은 무척 잘해요. All right, moving on to the next one we're going to go over, which is C. So we're going to look at the sentences, and there are 2 blanks, and one of the blanks for each sentence will be using the clausal connective form nunde, and then the other blank will be using the o, a, so connective form, right? And so for this, we just need to remember that o, a, so is a connective form that kind of insinuates cause and effect between the 2 clauses, whereas nunde is more used to provide background information. So going into that, you just find which blank fits which thing better, and then plug those into the sentence. So let's look at number 2. 날씨가, and we know that the verb we have to use is 춥다. So 날씨가 춥다, 오후에 수업이 있다, 테니스를 못 쳐요. So I think in this case, we could say 날씨가 좋은데, right? We're providing background information that the weather is good. 날씨가 좋은데, 오후에 수업이 있어서 테니스를 못 쳐요. So we say, we provide background information that the weather is good, but that in the afternoon, because we have class, 수업이 있어서 테니스를 못 쳐요. We can't go play tennis. So to me, that seems like the best case in this situation. So we'll fill that in. 날씨가 좋은데 오후에 수업이 있어서 테니스를 못 쳐요. All right. Awesome. Make sure I'm on the right page. Yeah, awesome. All right. Number 3. 오늘은 수업이 없다. 친구를 만나고 싶다. 친구가 바빠요. All right. So we could say 오늘은 수업이 없어서. So because today I don't have class, 친구를 만나고 싶은데 친구가 바빠요. So that makes more sense in my mind because we're saying 오늘은, because today we don't have class, I want to meet my friend, but they're busy. So in this case, we would say 수업이 없어서 친구를 만나고 싶은데 친구가 바빠요. Right? I think that makes sense. Moving on to the next one. So we're starting at 수업에, and then we use the verb 늦다, 택시를, and then we use the verb 타다, 차가 너무 막혔어요. So, excuse me. I think in this case, the best situation, so we're saying class today was late. We could say I was late to class today, and so I rode a taxi, and there was a lot of traffic, right? I think that makes the most sense using these verbs in this situation. So how would we say that? We would say 수업에 늦어서, because I'm late to my class, I rode a taxi. 택시를 탔는데, but the road was really crowded, right? 차가 너무 막혔어요. The cars were really congested, right? All right, I feel like that makes sense in that situation. Moving on to number 5. 마크는 한국 사람, and then we use the verb 이다, 한국어를 못하다, 한국어 수업을 들어요. So in this case, I feel like with this sentence, we know that they're saying Mark, and then Mark is a Korean person. 마크는 한국 사람이다, but he can't speak Korean, and so he is taking Korean classes. So if we were to make that sentence, we would say 마크는 한국 사람인데, he is a Korean person, providing background information. 한국어를 못해서, because he can't speak Korean, 한국어 수업을 들어요. He's taking Korean classes. Awesome. Moving on to number 6. 수업에 못, and then the verb 가다, And then 교수님 연구실에, and then 가다 again. 교수님이 안 계셨어요. All right. So 수업에 못 가서, if we were going to say today I couldn't, or because I didn't go to class, I went to my teacher's lab, but the teacher was not there. I feel like that's the most reasonable sentence we can make with this information. And so 오늘 수업에 못 가서, because I couldn't go to class today, I went to my teacher's 연구실, so like lab. So 갔는데, we use past tense because you went. And 교수님이 안 계셨어요. Our teacher wasn't there. Awesome. All right, moving on to D. So we're looking at the information in the box, and then we're writing sentences about what either us or our friends want to do based in the future, based off of what I'm assuming this wish list, I'm assuming is going to be people's wishes for the future, right? So we're going to provide the proper background information using ninde, and then because it's their wish list, I'm assuming that we'll also be using the go 싶다 form, right? So let's just read through the current situations in the wish lists and make sure we have everything correct. So current situation. 저는 내년에 졸업해요. I graduate next year. Pretty sweet. All right, and our wish list is 뉴욕에서 일해요. We want to work in New York. All right, moving on. It's still about us. We go 저는 집이 한국이에요. My house is in Korea. I live in Korea, basically. And our wish list is 여름에 한국에 가요. That's an interesting, all right. Well, our house is in Korea, but we also want to go to Korea. All right, sweet. And then number 3, 마크는 한국 음악을 좋아해요. Mark likes Korean music, but 다음 학기에 한국어 수업을 들어요. But he wants to take some Korean classes next semester. All right, 미나는 한국 문학을 전공했어요. Mina studied Korean literature as her major. And her wish list is 대학원에 가요, so she wants to go to graduate school. Our current situation for Steve is Steve는 매일 일찍 일어나요. Steve is currently waking up early. Good for Steve. I cannot do that. And our wish list for Steve's wish list is 공원에서 운동을 해요. He wants to work out in the park. All right. Great. So I'm just going to double check that I'm looking at the right problem. Yeah, we have. Okay, awesome. So let's look at number 2. They already did number 1 for us. It says 저는 내년에 졸업하는데 뉴욕에서 일하고 싶어요. I'm graduating next year, and I want to work in New York. So let's do the next one. I'm assuming it's going to refer back this line right here, right? So 저는 집이 한국인데 여름에 한국에 가고 싶어요, right? Because we're using this as kind of background information. This current situation column will be providing the background information that we will then connect with ninde to our wish list, right? So 저는 집이 한국인데, that is how we conjugate the using the ninde form when it's 이다, right? So we do 집이 한국인데 한국에 가. And then because this is something we want to do, this is a wish list, we're going to say want, right, with the go 싶다 form. So 가고 싶어요. Awesome. All right, moving on. Number 3. So this will connect up here, and we see that Mark is very fond of Korean music. 마크는 한국 음악을 좋아해요. But then his wish list is to study Korean next semester. So let's connect those things. 마크는 한국 음악을 좋아하는데 다음 학기에 한국어 수업을. Sorry, my handwriting is getting worse as we go along. 듣고 싶어. And because this is not us, right? We're talking about Mark, who's a third person. Instead of saying 듣고 싶어요, we're going to say 듣고 싶어 해요, which is the proper way to say it when we're talking about the third, someone else, right? The third person. And I'm running out of space, so that doesn't look very good. But you guys know what I wrote because I told you. So we're going to leave it like that, right? So 마크는 한국 음악을 좋아하는데 다음 학기에 한국어 수업을 듣고 싶어 해요. Right? Awesome. All right, moving on to number 4. Mina는, we know that Mina majored in Korean literature, but she wants to go to graduate school. So let's connect those two phrases using 는데 and 고 싶다. So Mina는 한국 문학을 전공, you gotta remember to do past tense because she already majored in it. 전공했는데 대학원에 가고 싶어 해요. Awesome. She wants to go to graduate school. And like I said, like what we did before with on number 3, because we're talking about this third person, instead of using just normal 가고 싶다, we'll say 가고 싶어 하다, 가고 싶어 해요. Right? So last one, moving on to Steve. Steve는 매일 일찍 일어나요. So he wakes up early every day. 공원에서 운동을 해요. And he wants to work out in the park. So let's connect those two forms. Steve는 매일 일찍 일어나는데 공원에서 운동을 하고 싶어 해요. Once again, using the 해요 form because we're talking about the third person, right? 스티븐은 매일 일찍 일어나는데 공원에서 운동을 하고 싶어 해요, right? All right, so we've used those connecting forms and the 고 싶다, and so moving on to the next one. So it seems like in number 3, we are going to be looking at noun modifying clauses again, like we did in class last Wednesday. And so we'll be underlining the noun modifying clauses and then circle the nouns that they're modifying. And then, and then we'll translate the whole sentence into English. Awesome. So we've got 3 tasks per number. So let's do that. So let's see. 형이 좋아하는 영화는 액션 영화예요. So in this case, we look and we see that probably in this case, 형이 좋아하는 영화는 our brother's favorite movie, or the movie that our brother likes. And so brother and likes are going to be the noun modifying clause, and then the noun that they're modifying is going to be 영화. The movies that my brother likes, right? In that case, the noun that we're talking about is movies, and then that my brother likes, or it's going to be the noun modifying phrase. So, and then 액션 영화예요. So the movies my brother likes are action movies. All right, awesome. Moving on to number 3. 스티브가 좋아하는 과목은 한국 역사예요. So the whole sentence translated is Steve, the subject that Steve likes is Korean literature, right? So we look over and we say the subject Steve likes, right? So the noun that we're talking about is subject, right? So we'll circle that, and the phrase modifying it is 스티브가 좋아하는, right? We're saying Steve liking, and then, so this is, 과목 is subject, and then before it we're saying Steve likes, right? So the subject that Steve likes. Is Korean history. Or if you wanted to say it a little bit more naturally, you could just say Steve likes Korean history. That's not like a direct translation, but that's a little bit more natural way to say it. The subject that Steve likes is Korean history. Number 4, 매일 아침 운동을 하는 사람이 제 친구 마이클입니다. All right, so let's translate the sentence first, right? 매일 아침 운동을 하는 사람이, the person who exercises every morning. 제 친구 마이클입니다, is my friend Michael, right? So this first phrase here is what we're going to be looking at. 매일 아침 운동을 하는 사람이, right? The person who exercises every morning. The noun that we're talking about here is the person. So we'll circle that, the saram, right? And the phrase that modifies it is 매일 아침 운동하는, the person who exercises every morning, right? So exercises every morning is this phrase right here, modifying the noun, the person. And the person who exercises every morning is my friend Michael. All right, number 5, moving on. 지금 제가 읽는 책들은 모두 한국에서 샀어요. All right, so let's translate the sentence just to kind of get a feel for what it's saying. 지금 제가 읽는 책은 the books that I'm reading right now, 모두, all of them, 한국에서 샀어요. So all the books that I'm reading right now, I bought in Korea, right? So we're going to probably be looking at the first phrase right here, which is 지금 제가 읽는 책들은, right? So the noun that we're talking about, right, because the whole phrase means the books that I am reading right now. So the noun that we're talking about is books, right? So we'll circle books, and then the noun modifying phrase is 지금 제가 읽는, that I am reading right now, right? So 지금, right now, 제가, me, 읽는, reading, but turned into the noun modifying phrase, and then the all affecting the noun of 책, which is book, right? So all the books I am reading right now, I bought in Korea. Awesome. Thank you guys for being patient with my handwriting. It's not very good. All right, moving on to F. I think, oh yeah, it's not our last one. I thought it was for just a moment. So translate into clauses the italics, or the clauses in italics into Korean. So we're going to be essentially translating these nouns and their noun modifying phrases, or clauses. Sorry, I've been saying that wrong the whole time. And so let's do number 1. This is the Korean restaurant that I often go to with my parents. So what we're going to be translating is the Korean restaurant that I often go with my parents. So the Korean restaurant would be 한국 식당, and then I often go, we would use the words 자주 and 가다, right? And then with my parents, you would say, in order to say with my parents, you could say like 부모님하고, right? And so putting that all together, you could say 제가 부모님하고, so me with my parents, 자주, often, 가는, right? This is the noun modifying form right here. 자주 가는 한국 식당, Korean restaurant. So the Korean restaurant that I often go to with my parents. 제가 부모님하고 자주 가는 한국 식당. Awesome. Moving on to the next one. The person who I waited for in the library. All right. So let's go through with all the words we're going to need. We're going to need, obviously, me. And then the library is 도서관. Waited is 기다리다, right? And then other person is 사람, right? That's pretty much all we'll need for this. So let's go putting it all together. 제가 도서관에서 기다린 사람. Yeah, awesome. I'm going to make sure that I conjugated that 기다린다 correctly before we move on. Yeah, we did. All right, awesome. So 제가 도서관에서 기다린 사람. We use 기다린 instead of 기다리는 because we waited. It's past tense. If it was present, or if it's present tense, we would say 기다리는, right? But because we waited for them, we say 기다린. 제가 도서관에서 기다린 사람, the person I waited for in the library. All right, moving on. Number 3, the movie that I want to watch, and I'm not going to highlight them anymore. I don't know if that's helping. So the movie that I want to watch this weekend is a Korean comedy. And what we're going to be translating is the movie that I want to watch this weekend. All right, so we know that weekend is 주말. This weekend, you might say 이번 주말. and then watch is the verb 보다, and the movie is 영화. All right, so we could say, putting it all together, 제가 이번 주말에, me, and then this weekend, 보고 싶은 영화. All right, the movie that I want to watch this weekend. We're using 보, the verb 보 is what we're going to use to modify the noun. And because we want to watch something, we're not watching something, we use 보고 싶다. But then we turn that into the noun modifying clause, 보고 싶은, and then 영화 for movie. All right, awesome. Moving on to number 4. The classes that I take this semester are Korean history, Korean economics, and Korean language. And what we're going to be translating is the clause, the classes that I take this semester. So for this semester, we would say 이번, meaning this, and then 학기, which is semester. And then for to take, in Korean is 듣다, like to listen. And then I think that's all we should need. I mean, 수업 for classes, but you guys already know that. So we could say, putting it all together, 이번 학기에 제가 듣는 수업, and I guess we should say 들 for plural. All right, so 이번 학기에 제가 듣는 수업들. We use the verb 듣다, right? And then we modify it so that it affects the noun of 수업, which is what the noun that we're talking about, right? The classes. Awesome. Number 5. The friend who I play tennis with every weekend is Matthew. And the phrase that we're going to be translating is the friend who I play tennis with every weekend. All right. So 제가 we say 매주 주말 to say every weekend, and then 매주 주말에, and then tennis is just 테니스. 테니스를 we use 같이 to mean together. 같이 치는, and I guess I was going to write 사람, but it's not 사람, it's friend. So we'll say 친구. All right. So 제가 매주 주말에 테니스를 같이 치는 친구. We use 치다, to play tennis is 테니스를 치다, but instead of just saying 쳐요, we're using the modifying form 치는 to affect the noun 친구, right? The friend who I play tennis with every weekend. 제가 매주 주말에 테니스를 같이 치는 친구. Awesome. All right. Our final, excuse me, I need to get a drink. I keep having to clear my throat. The last thing we're going to look at today is H. And what we're doing is just completing each of the sentences based on the English translations that they give us. So this will be pretty straightforward. Number 1 is, I am sorry for being late. And they already give us the 죄송합니다, so we're already apologizing. So we just have to say for being late. And we already know how to say that with the connective forms that we've learned. So we say 늦어서 죄송합니다. Awesome. And number 2, where is the swimming pool that Minji swims in every day? So they've given us 2 blanks this time, and they've given us, at the start, they say 민지가 매일, and so we know that this is saying Minji and every day, so we can assume that this first part is going to be the noun modifying clause, because the next part is 수영장이. So we're going to translate this part. Minji swims in every day. So 민지가 매일 수영하는 수영장이 어디입니까? Right. So we're using the noun right here. Let's select this. Right here, we're using the noun modifying form. 수영하는 수영장. The 수영장, the swimming place that she swims in every day. Where is it? Awesome. All right. Yumi wants to study Korean in Korea. So Yeonmi는, they just give us her name and then they want us to translate the rest of the sentence. So they kind of left us to our own devices on this one. But she wants to study Korean in Korea. So we know we're going to use 한국 and 한국어 and probably we'll probably say eso to mean in Korea. And then we'll have to use the go 싶다 form because she wants to do something, right? So let's put that all together. 유미는 한국에서, in Korea, 한국어를, Korean, and then study, 공부하고 싶어 해요, right? Because we're not speaking about ourselves, we're speaking about a third person. Instead of using 하고 싶다, we use 하고 싶어 해요, right? So 유미는 한국에서 한국어를 공부하고 싶어 해요. Awesome. Number 4. I ate Korean food yesterday. It was delicious. All right, awesome. So this, let's translate that. So we would obviously just use 제가. Korean food, you guys know, is 한국 음식. Ate, the verb 먹다. Yesterday, you guys know, is 어제. And delicious, we know to be 맛있다, right? So putting all that together, let's put that into a comprehensive sentence. So 제가 어제 먹은, so we're using again the noun modifying form to say the food we ate yesterday. So this 먹은 right here, 어제 먹은 한국 음식, excuse me, 음식은 맛있었어요. Alright, 제가 어제 먹은 한국 음식은 맛있었어요. Yeah, if I were to translate this, I would probably say like the Korean food I ate yesterday was delicious. But I mean the general gist of the sentence is still the same, right? I just feel like it translated a tiny bit differently, but that's all right. So that is the last part of the workbook that Professor Kim wanted us to go over. If you had any questions about what I said, or you noticed any mistakes that I made, please feel free to let me know over email. I'm always happy to talk to you guys at any time. And good luck on your test next week.